Hello, my name is Angel Brown, owner of Mama Dottie Incorporated, and today we're going to be talking about early labor and getting into active labor, gaining control by surrendering control. So when we think about childbirth, we can quickly see that it has similarities, many similarities to running a marathon or some other type of physical endurance event. Let's just say you are a new runner to a 10-mile marathon. You're a beginner runner. You've never ran a marathon before in your life. What do you think would be some things that you would do in preparation for a 10-mile marathon that you've never run before in your life? I would think that you may want to start training 3 months in advance. You may want to start exercising. You may want to have a diet that would be conducive to a great run on running day. And then even the night before the run and the day of the run, you may be doing stretching. You may be eating right. You may be going over the routine that you prepared for the pace that you plan to walk, run, jog, trot, whatever, that sort of pace that you're going to run. You're going over that program that I'm sure you probably will plan. And then you may want to start off with a slow pace, a slow walk for the marathon, right? What are some things that you probably shouldn't do? You probably shouldn't wait to the day of the marathon to train for the marathon, right? You probably shouldn't eat something that's unusual or out of the norm the night before or the day of the marathon. And you definitely, I don't think it would be very beneficial for you to come out sprinting right at the beginning of the marathon, right? So childbirth, again, as we see, it could have many similarities to some type of physical endurance event like a marathon. Both include pain and psychological demands for the participant. Both require stamina and patience, and both become much more manageable when the participants are well prepared and know what to expect. All right, so let's get into early labor. This is the first phase of the dilation stage, and it lasts until the cervix is dilated to about 5 or 6 centimeters. Now, this dilation process could take from a few hours to 20 hours or so for the birthing person to reach 5 or 6 centimeters of dilation. The length of early labor depends largely on the state of the cervix, the position and station of the baby within the pelvis at the time labor begins, and the strength of the contractions. Okay. Now, emotions that we may be experiencing or that the birthing person may be experiencing during early labor range from relief or elation because, hey, the baby's finally coming. I've waited so long to meet my baby. So you can have relief, elation, excitement, or it could range to denial or disbelief, like, oh my gosh, this is not happening. This is not happening right now. It could move into worry, fear, or panic. Now, um, as labor settles into a rhythmic pattern, the laboring person usually, right, settles down emotionally, pacing themselves and finding routines for handling each contraction. Now, sometimes in excitement of early labor, the laboring person rushes the labor along in their mind. Okay. Um, let's revisit our thoughts on running a 10-mile marathon for the first time in our lives. So, before we play this video, I want to say that when we talk about the laboring person rushing the labor on in their minds, what I mean is that she may overreact to relatively mild contractions. If she concentrates hard on each one, she may feel it for a longer time. And so it seems longer and more intense than if she's being distracted by some other activity. This results partly from the desire for labor to go quickly and partly from not knowing what level of intensity to expect. Without this frame of reference, it's easy to become convinced that labor is progressing more rapidly than it really is. Okay, so keeping in mind that sprint as opposed to walking when the marathon first begins, and let's look at what happens to this guy in this as we think about that scenario in our minds. So as we see, this guy has done the breaststroke, the backstroke, all sorts of different moves, going nowhere fast, tired himself out in how many seconds, right? So when the laboring person rushes labor mentally, they may want to go to the hospital too early. They may start to use rhythmic breathing and other labor coping measures before they're really needed. They may speculate that the cervix is dilated much more than it really is. So, using the marathon scenario, we may see the benefit of starting off walking instead of sprinting. So now, how can we help as support partners or doulas as the early labor kicks in? Well, we want to time the contractions and see whether the birthing person can be distracted. So, we can try to have them, we can walk, take them for a walk or a phone or visit with friends and relatives. If labor seems to slow down or becomes easier when she's distracted, then she may have overreacted. So we can keep up the distractions. We can have the birthing person rest or sleep or have other diversions going like music, TV, playing cards, have her eat something, eat light, easily digestible foods, drink plenty of fluids, but keep the bladder empty or take a bath or shower. Now, if the distractions are not helping or labor does not slow down with mom being distracted, then she is not overreacting and it's time to stop the distractions and help her cope instead. Okay? So now, at this point, we're getting into the active labor, right? Or the marathon continues. So now, when we get into the active labor, we are discussing the 3 to 5 phase, as we call it, the 3 to 5 phase, where the cervix is moving into that dilation. It's opening up between 3 and 5 centimeters. Now, I do want to point out that the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, they did some recent research on dilation patterns in labors with normal outcomes. And they found that dilation may begin to speed up as late as 6 centimeters. So this means that interventions to speed up labor may not be needed. So this is something to know as mom may be straddling the fence between settling into a rhythmic pattern and rushing labor along in her mind. Okay. So now at this point, an emotional shift takes place in many laboring people, and the support they need from their support partner or doula changes. Okay. So now we want to discuss the emotions that come about during this 3 to 5 phase that I just discussed, right? So now we're seeing that earlier optimism may give way to temporary loss of confidence or a struggle to remain in control. Mom may worry that labor is too difficult, or she may begin to cry from discouragement and a sense that she has a long way to go, right? She may want pain medications, even though that wasn't the original plan. Okay. So now when we get to this phase in the process, sometimes it's called the moment of truth. This is when the birthing person realizes in a new and powerful way that they cannot control this labor. And let's just take a moment to look at what that may see what that may look like.
The current's taking her down. Lucy's just swimming against the current.
Don't think I'm going anywhere.
So as we see, we have one woman that's swimming against the current. She's struggling against the flow. We have another woman that decides to go with the flow, and we see movement. We see good movement. So if the laboring person, let's continue. If the laboring person doesn't feel judged and feels emotionally safe, she's likely to find her flow. She's likely to release and find her flow. She's likely to become more instinctual and find her spontaneous ritual, which is her own way to cope during the contractions. And then we, as support partners or doulas, will want to move into the next level of comfort measures, which are discussed in another class. So again, this 3 to 5 phase that we talked about, this phase is also likely to be when contractions reach the point where you should go to the hospital or birth center, or that your home birth midwife should be called. And I just want to quickly throw out the 511 rule. That's where the birthing person has experienced between 12 and 15 consecutive contractions that have been 5 minutes apart and 1 minute long for at least 1 hour. Okay, so now last slide. This is a recap of the first stage of labor. This is all about the dilation and opening, the opening of the cervix. Again, as we think about that marathon, we start off in early labor. We want to have the slow pace. We can compare this to the walk portion of the marathon, the walking portion. Early labor could last between 6 and 12 hours. Let's keep in mind that every labor is unique and the length of your labor may be different. So these are just averages, right? Then we get into that more, it's getting a little bit more intense here at the active labor. So now you're into a jog. The active labor stage can last between 3 and 5 hours. And then you find now we're in that intense, sprint. This is where you want to sprint in that marathon, right? During the transition phase down here, where and the transition phase could last between 30 minutes to 2 hours. And over here, I'm listing dilation, the measurements of dilation or the range of the dilation that could happen with each stage of this dilation phase, the first stage of labor. So again, I've listed measurements from the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, and also from the World Health Organization. So just looking at ACOG, we see that during early labor, this is when that cervix can dilate between 0 to 5 centimeters. During active labor, the cervix can dilate between 6 to 7 centimeters. And then that transition phase, that last part where the cervix is dilating all the way to 10 centimeters, and baby is now ready to come out. Thank you so much.